Hey, welcome back to the Missouri Sports Network, MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. Brought to you and presented by Central Bank of the Ozarks, Shelter Insurance, Grant Baker in Aurora, Doak Propane, Labor's Local 663, Great Southern Bank, Chevy Dealers of the Ozarks, and the Bank of Billings. Pleased to be joined once again by Windsor Greyhound head football coach Jake Vencill. And coach, here you are in a familiar spot, defending Class 1 state champions. You've won 26 games in a row, and now you get to go back once again to the friendly confines of Urbana, Missouri, and take on Skyline. But first, talk a little bit about last week's game here as you prepare now for this district semifinal.
Well, first of all, we really appreciate your coverage of high school athletics. You know, when we sit here in Windsor, Missouri, we're kind of in between two major cities. We don't get a ton of coverage, really. So we really appreciate it whenever, we have media that reaches out to us. So we really appreciate you having us on. Going back a little bit further, there in week 9, the last time we talked, we played St. Michael's, which was a Class 2 private school that we played up at Lee Summit North High School. And I thought that was a great catalyst to send us into the postseason. We won that game 30-21 in a really hard-fought 4-quarter battle. At the time, St. Michael's was the 12th ranked team in Class 2 football. So they were very athletic, challenged us for 4 quarters, and we made some really big plays in the 4th quarter. But I thought it was exactly the type of game that we needed to see to send us into the postseason. Then when you enter postseason, we had a good regular season, got the 2 seed in our district, which set us up for a favorable matchup in the first round. First round, we played Sherwood. Thought we played pretty well in that game, maybe not up to our exact standards, but we played well enough to advance to the second round. In the second round, we had Adrian coming to our place at the 3 seed. Very physical, good football team. And it could have been a possible district championship type matchup between 2 football programs that are playing at that level. Last year, Adrian was in the Final Four. They were defeated by Mid-Buchanan, and that's how Mid-Buchanan got the state championship game. So I was really pleased at how our guys handled our week of preparation going into Adrian week. We had our best week of practice. They're extremely focused. Did a great job of matching their physicality. Thought we did a great job with our run fits, stopping the downhill running attack veer, and then put ourselves in some good positions, put some points on the board. And then, in the second half, I felt like our offensive line actually took over the game, and Dalton Witherspoon went off for 261 yards and 4 TDs. So really, really proud of how our guys have handled everything this season. The expectations going into the year after undefeated, Class 1 state championship, they've handled everything that's been thrown at them all season long. And the next step is a district championship.
And you've got to travel to Skyline, and even though you're 11-0, Skyline I believe is 8-3 on the season. They got bonus points for maybe the viewers that don't understand that. How could you be the 2 seed undefeated and defending state champions? But it's a point system. Skyline played up with Central, and they played up with the Valley Catholic team. And even though they lost the Valley Catholic game, they still get bonus points there. So that's how this kind of works out. But now you've got to go and take on a Skyline team that may be a little bit differently set up than what an Adrian team is, a Skyline team that's very athletic. They like to spread the ball around a little bit. Although, a year ago, you guys put up, it was 80 points scored in that game, but you had 44 of them. They had 36 of it. What are your expectations here as you head into this contest?
Well, it's going to be a high-level football game. Last year when we went down there, it was just an absolute shootout. Both teams, like you said, putting up points on the board, yards, everything that you would ask from an offensive perspective, and that type of game at a high level. We really felt like that could have been a Final Four game last season. And so we felt very fortunate to be able to move on to that next round and felt like we were tested, for the rest of our playoff run. We felt we were very tested. They return a lot of the same characters. They have a quarterback down there that's thrown for 3,000 yards in every single season he's been there. He has great receivers that go catch the football. So you're exactly right. It's a completely different type of challenge from Adrian, who was the more physical, run it straight at you type of attack. And the other thing is that Skyline has been very tested. They opened the season against Class 3 Valley. which is a great program. Traveled over to play to Skyline. They've also, their other losses were to Fairgrove, who is undefeated and playing in a district championship, a Class 2 school. And then their other loss was to Warsaw, who just lost in the district semifinals, another Class 2 school. In their conference play, they play up all the time. So that is always a challenge, as a Class 1 program to do that week in and week out. So we know that they're going to be a battle-tested, very confident football team that's going to give us a big challenge for 4 quarters in a different type of way. We're going to have to be very sound in our back end, make sure we have great coverage, make sure we're taking great leverages. They're a little bit more balanced this year in their running attack. The Woodhouses gave them a great running back there in the backfield who's really been putting up some numbers, especially last week when they scored 50 on Lincoln. For us, it's about doing what we do well. I think as the season's progressed, we've really done a great job of figuring out what we need to do offensively to put ourselves in successful situations. Here's some stats for you. As coaches, we love stats. Dylan Witherspoon, our quarterback, who stepped in his first year as a starter, has 1,234 yards passing and 19 touchdowns. He also has 541 yards and 8 touchdowns on the ground. So he's a very balanced, mixed threat quarterback, and he does a great job of executing our offense. As we talked about before, Dalton Witherspoon's extremely explosive. He has 1,606 yards and 25 touchdowns on the ground. He also has 689 yards receiving. So he is a real running and receiving threat. We try to do multiple different ways of getting him the football, splitting him out, out of the backfield, a lot of different ways and different formations that we like to get him the ball. Defensively, we're led by Dusty Johnson, who's 90-plus tackles, just an absolute hard nose to the football at our middle backer. Our defensive line is coming along as the season's progressed. Corbin Terry up front has 5 sacks. Cole Hess, Marshall Mankini, and Caleb Eaton. I think that our defensive line play last week and our run fits against Adrian is the best we've played all season. On the back end, Dylan Witherspoon has 4 interceptions, so we're covering him up. So I feel like as the season's progressed, we are truly playing our best football right now. I love coaching this football team, and I would take this group against anyone in the state in Class 1 football right now. We will be prepared to play well for 4 quarters. Our guys love to compete, and they will leave it all on the field Friday night, and we will live with the results.
Coach, again, we're visiting with Jake Vencill, the head coach at the Windsor Greyhounds. And Coach, first off, what's your travel plan? You've made this trip last year. What time are you guys heading out on Friday?
Well, it's a nice trip down there to Urbana, straight down 65 Highway. So we are familiar with this trip before. Like we said, we got to play there last season. Getting the 2 seed again in our district, Skyline getting the 1, it's kind of a familiar path. And actually, due to the rain, we played our first round district at Clinton High School against Sherwood, and that's exactly what we had to do last season as well. So there's a lot of things that are very familiar about this run that we're making right now. Travel plans would be, we'd load up the bus about 4 p.m. here, have a good team meal after school, get loaded up, make that nice trip down there to Urbana. They have very nice facilities there. It's right off the 65 highway. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There's not much around it. But we're also being very excited for this opportunity. This would be our 3rd straight district championship game that we're playing in. That's a great accomplishment as a program. And we're just very excited to be in this position.
You bet. Coach, you coming into this game relatively healthy?
Yes, we are. As you go along the season, obviously we've had some bumps and bruises there, but I think we've had a great mentality of guys just stepping up and be ready to play when we've had those. A couple, injuries here or there. We got one guy that's down with a knee injury, a senior. But other than that, we're completely healthy, and I think we're hitting our full stride right now. So that's awesome to see, especially when you get around to November playoff football.
As you look at the other members of Class 1, especially down here in this area, you've got the familiar faces. I know last year you guys had to go through a Skyline, then Maryville, and then Thayer. This year you won't see Marionville and Thayer. because they're in the same district. So one of those two is going to eliminate the other. But what have been your impressions just as you look at the Class 1, everything kind of falling like you assumed it would?
Yeah, you're always focused on your task at hand in a week by week process. But, in the broad picture, you do want to look at those things and kind of see who some of the schools that may be considered contenders in Class 1. This year, you felt like it was a lot of the same faces, familiar programs. But, last week in a really big district semifinal matchup, East Buchanan knocked off Mid Buchanan. And the last poll of the season, Mid Buck had actually overtaken us at the number 1 spot. But now, they're finished for the year. You look down south, you got Marionville, who's undefeated, playing some great football. Obviously, them playing Thayer in the district championship game. You never count out Thayer, especially when it comes around to playoff football. They are always tested in their conference as well. So I would say that's going to be one heck of a district championship game between those two. You look on the other side of the state, Hayti is absolutely putting up points week in and week out. They've been lighting up the scoreboard. On the same side of that bracket, you got Monroe City, who was a Class 2 program that finished last season ranked in Class 2. So that they're definitely going to be, considered in the running here in Class 1. And so, University Academy is playing East Buchanan. That's somebody that we played earlier this season. We felt like they were a very good football team, and we played very well in that game. So, it's interesting how these matchups will all play out. But we're excited to, be still playing football at this time of the season. Like I said, I'm just so proud of how our guys have handled everything that's been brought their way this season. The expectations, they've just handled things in the right way. We have great leadership on this team. And we have guys that just love to play football, and it's awesome to see how they compete week in and week out.
Very good. When I wake up Saturday morning, if Windsor, if the Greyhounds will win, what is one stat you can point at that you guys are going to win if you have to win that game?
I would say that the Greyhounds need to win the line of scrimmage. We need to be able to establish the running game. We need to be very efficient in our passing game. But if we can establish the line of scrimmage, if we can play physical, if we can, outrush our opponent Skyline, I think that would put us in a great position to be successful. Obviously, defensively, we've got to be able to keep things in front of us. We've got to make stops, especially in the red zone. I think whoever wins the red zone and finishes possessions in a game like this is going to have a great advantage. But I would say ultimately, if we win the line of scrimmage and play physical football, we're gonna put ourselves in a great position.
Outstanding. Coach Vencill, as always, we certainly appreciate you being part of the Missouri Sports Network here, where everyone has a home field advantage. Best of luck on Friday night, and keep winning, and we'll keep that karma coming. We'll keep having you on.
Well, thank you for your coverage, high school athletics. Thank you for having me on today and talking about these Windsor Greyhounds. And hopefully we get to chat real soon. Go Greyhounds.
You bet. You're listening to the Missouri Sports Network at MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. And as always, the Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us, take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Be safe, be smart. And as always, be here tomorrow.